Hi folks, welcome to RJA Impact. Today I'm going to be discussing the breaking news that the mystery of the Somerton Man may have been solved. Before I go into the details of what has just transpired, you may want to look at an earlier video I did on this that covers all the background to this mystery in some detail and all the tantalising clues that surround the case, and has had law enforcement, historians, amateur sleuths and conspiracy theorists puzzled for decades. So here we go. Derek Abbott from the University of Adelaide says the body of the man found on one of the city's beaches in 1948 belonged to Carl Charles Webb, an electrical engineer and instrument maker born in Melbourne in 1905. Now, he has declared this independently of the South Australia Police and the Forensic Science Department of South Australia. They have not verified his findings, and to some extent he has been working independently of them. They have been following a different path, of which we'll look at later, to identify Somerton, and publicly at least have not made any significant progress. Forensic Science SA have to date actually declined to comment and have referred questions from reporters to the SA Police, who in turn have said there were no updates and that police would provide further comment, in quotes, when results from the testing are received. Using DNA analysis and sequencing, Abbott was able to gain clues as to the man's identity, and he then worked with genealogist Colleen Fitzpatrick from the US, who is renowned in her field. Let's take a step back a year and unpack what happened. I mentioned that there were two paths being followed, and let's look at them and explain a bit further. So following Abbott's call for Somerton Man to be exhumed over many years, this eventually took place in May of 2021. Forensic Science SA then had the task of working out how to extract and analyse his DNA, and don't underestimate how difficult this would be after over 70 years since his burial. If you've watched the previous video on this, then you'll know that there was a plaster cast made of Somerton Man shortly after his death. This was preserved over the years, and crucially, when this was done, there were strands of his hair trapped in the plaster. Over a decade ago, police gave Abbott a number of these strands, about 50 I believe. The process of extracting useful information was painfully slow, but with Fitzpatrick and a team of DNA experts at the University of Adelaide, information about the DNA was gained, and this allowed the pair to slowly hone in on potential matches. By March this year, 2022, Abbott said that he had already established Webb's name through the years of painstaking work with Fitzpatrick and managed to build a complex family tree of around 4,000 names that eventually led to Webb. Now, Webb had never had a record filed indicating his death or date of death. In Abbott's words, "By filling out this tree, we managed to find a first cousin 3 times removed on his mother's side." Remarkably, on July the 23rd, they matched DNA obtained from their hair to DNA tests taken by Webb's distant relatives. In Fitzpatrick's words, "It's like one of those folklore mysteries that everybody wants to solve, and we did it," she said. And Abbott went on to say about the moment they made the DNA match, "It just felt like I climbed and I was at the top of Mount Everest." As an aside, I always get confused when people talk about cousins once removed and once twice removed, etc. So I've put this schematic in so that you can see the relationship between Somerton Man and a first cousin 3 times removed. Well, is this the end then? Can we all pack our bags, declare this one solved and moved on? Well, no. There are clues arising from the investigation of the case over the years, some of which we now have tantalising links with, and some, well, they still persist. First of all, and obviously crucial, the analysis needs to be verified. The veracity of the findings is not in doubt to my mind, but if I err on the side of total caution, we need to eliminate bias that Abbott and Fitzpatrick may have. Clearly Abbott has invested a huge amount of his life investigating this case, and positive bias needs to be ruled out. In other words, bias towards finding a DNA match, which they no doubt have. Now let me be clear also, I'm not questioning in any way their findings, just putting a layer of verification on top of their hard work. That would seal in bedrock the match. Relating to this point itself, Abbott has said, "In anything like this you can only be 99.999% sure that it's right," he said. "Strange things can happen, there can be a twist." And Fitzpatrick has said, "I am really very interested in helping solve the mystery of how he died. I would like to see toxicology done." In respect of the parallel investigation that's been going on in regards to the exhumation, the SA police have not been forthcoming as of yet. Their protocol is not to talk about a case until their part is done, Abbott has said. They will most likely approach us, that is the University of Adelaide, after our announcement. The DNA findings are incontrovertible. So what are all these clues and outstanding questions then? Well, there was the Taman Shud, the extract from the Persian poem Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, the strange code, speculation that Somerton Man was a spy, and well, I could go on here, but I'll return to these in due course. Some of the tantalising hints still remain elusive, but now as Somerton Man's identity has been finally established, a slow unravelling may take place. Let's take a 10,000-foot overview of the case, and then we can see what has been unravelled and what remains to be dissected. Somerton Man Revisited, the short version. The Somerton Man mystery began in the early hours of December 1st, 1948, when beachgoers found a body lying on a Somerton beach in Adelaide. The man was well built, about 40 to 50 years old, 5 feet 11 inches, that's 1.8 metres tall, and had grey-blue eyes and gingery brown hair that was greying at the sides. In his pocket there were rail tickets which showed he might have taken a train to Adelaide railway station the day before. There was a suitcase in the station's luggage room. The suitcase contained clothes with the labels torn off. There were clues that some of the items, in particular a suit, had US origins. There were sharp objects and scissors found in the suitcase. A worldwide search ensued, with his fingerprints and photos being sent to major police departments around the world, all with no positive identification. Now, a few months later, found in a hidden fob pocket on his clothing, there was a rolled-up piece of paper printed with the words Taman Shud, meaning the end or it is finished in Persian. This was then found to be the final words of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, and the piece of paper had been torn from the final page. Incredibly, the book was actually found by an unnamed man who said he found it discarded in his car on November the 30th, the day before Somerton Man's death. Police also traced a handwritten phone number on its back cover to a woman who lived in the nearby Adelaide suburb of Glenelg. She was visibly taken aback when shown Somerton Man's cast, but denied knowing him. Near the phone number were scribbled letters that some surmised could be a secret wartime code, although all attempts to decipher it have failed. Who was Charles Webb? According to Abbott, Webb was born on November the 16th, 1905 in Footscray, a suburb of Victoria's state capital, Melbourne, and he was the youngest of 6 siblings. We know he married Dorothy Robertson, known as Doff Webb, and Abbott has undertaken extensive research of public records for information, but unfortunately no photos have been found yet. According to Fitzpatrick, the last known record we have of him is in April 1947 when he left Dorothy. He disappeared and she appeared in court saying that he had disappeared and she wanted to divorce. They had no children of record. While Robertson had filed for divorce in Melbourne, there were documents from 1951 that shows she had moved to Butte, South Australia, and this is approximately 144 kilometres or 89 miles north-east of Adelaide. It is possible that he came to this state to try and find her, Abbott speculated. This is just us drawing the dots. We can't say for certain that this is the reason he came, but it seems logical. What about the codes? Well, according to what Abbott and Fitzpatrick have found, Webb liked betting on horses, and this could then explain the code found in his book, said Abbott. This actually had been speculated about by investigators over the years at one time or another. And the Taman Shud poem? Well, Webb liked poetry and even wrote his own, Abbott said, based on his research. To me, this all seems to be making a compelling narrative, the fitting together of the disparate clues. Don't know what you think. Let's take a further look at some of the clues. So in 2012, the university team extracted DNA from the hair showing the Somerton Man's maternal group. It was not for several years before they made a major breakthrough to define the halogroup further to H4A1A1A, Abbott said. The family tree that led to Webb was confirmed by the work on the pieces of hair. Fitzpatrick said this is probably one of the older cases that had been solved using this methodology. This hair is not only 70 years old, but it's been in a plaster cast for 70 years. The DNA has also definitively put to rest continual speculation that the Somerton Man was the grandfather of Abbott's wife, Rachel Egan. The couple met when his search for these answers led him to her father, Robin Thompson, who seemed to share some of the same physical attributes. Abbott said that finding out there was no link was a great relief. It was just the tension of not knowing either way, he said, so it's a relief just to know the truth. Now, if you've watched the original video I've done, then there was some quite compelling evidence gained from the examination of Somerton Man's ears, which had very rare genetic idiosyncrasies, and these appeared to be a match for traits observed in Egan's grandfather and progeny. Well, this is now explained by Abbott, who says, the fact that he, i.e. Thompson, has a rare dental and ear condition matching the Somerton Man appears to be an extraordinary coincidence. About Webb himself, the last time he's ever mentioned in any kind of document that we're able to find is 1947, so it's like he just fell off the radar, Abbott said. This is obviously a match with him being found dead on the beach in December 1948. In Somerton Man's suitcase there were 3 labels on the clothes that had not been cut off and had the name T. Keane on them. Well, wouldn't you know it, but Webb had a brother-in-law called Thomas Keane, and he lived in Brunswick. The sharp objects found in the suitcase? Well, these would well match with Webb's occupation as an instrument maker. We've already talked about the poetry and code linking with Webb writing poetry himself and having interest in betting on horses. And Abbott has said in respect of these findings, I suspected right from the beginning of this case, because a lot of the spy theories came around in the 1940s, I thought, that's all very well, but it's more likely to be something banal really. And that's what it turned out to be, all quite pedestrian. As for Webb's presence in Adelaide, one theory Abbott has is that Webb followed his ex-wife Dorothy, who had moved to the city. In concluding this update, I'll quote again from Abbott. My biggest hope is now the public has his name, they will remember that name and go searching in their garden sheds for all family elements that might find something on this guy. So there is still work to do. Okay, so I think you'll agree that that does unravel a huge amount of the Somerton Man mystery. However, I think that there is still a big gap between what Abbott has explained and what he has not explained. Let me explain. Remember the book, The Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam? Well, didn't I say it had a phone number in it? Well, yes it did. And as a reminder, the book was found the day before Webb's body was found, and ripped out of the last page was the Taman Shud scrap of paper in a hidden fob pocket found on Webb's clothing. The phone number? Well, it belonged to Jessica Thompson, who lived about 400 metres from where Webb was found. I find it entirely plausible that Webb did go to visit Jessica on that fateful day, and whilst the DNA analysis rules out that the children of Jessica are of Webb, it is still entirely plausible that he was in that location to meet her. Abbott has either glossed over or not yet mentioned this connection, which I think is more likely than him visiting his ex-wife. Abbott says that it is a valid conjecture that Webb was in the area because he was within 144 kilometres of his wife or ex-wife. Yet Jessica's house was 400 metres away. Which is more likely in your opinion? Well, I know what I think. This theory would actually close and make a compelling narrative for some of the still open questions. How he died is still open, and maybe toxicology reports will reveal something. Okay, so that unravels a huge amount of the Somerton Man mystery. I'll keep watching this and provide updates as and when any further information comes to light. I hope you found this update informative, and if you have, then I'd appreciate a like on the video. If you subscribe to this channel, that would be greatly appreciated too. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you don't miss out on updates and future videos as they are published. Bye for now.